Why? Why not?
Okay, it's kind of late, but I really needed to get this off of my chest. A friend of mine and I have been talking a lot about how we really need to leave the area that we live in. I've told you guys many times that I grew up in a pretty conservative town in California, and I didn't really notice much about it until years after college when I really started, paying attention to things and getting into politics. But I have really reached a crossroads right now, and I don't even know if it's something that I could, that's actually plausible for us to do right now, but my wife and I are definitely taking applications for cities in California, possibly states somewhere else, possibly a different country to go to, because the blatant racism and hate that Donald Trump and his administration have now basically given people, the gall, emboldened people to be okay with, has gotten completely out of hand. So I'll start with, I was driving home today, and I'm driving by the post office in my town, and there's a lady standing outside of the post office with a sign. There's a picture of Donald Trump and a sign that says, "Trump can't do it on his own." And then it says, "Sign the petition here for voter ID." And it's crazy that I see this in California. And because, first of all, none of these people can show you any proof that there has been any fraud, any cheating of any significant number in voting in this country. When you go to vote, they ask you your first and last name. And then here in California, this is what I did on Tuesday. They asked me my first and last name. Then they asked me to verify my address. If I had walked up and said my first and last name and my address, and they said to me, "Someone has already voted for you," then I would say, wow, then someone cheated, right? So if that were happening, you would have a lot of people in California saying, I walked up to vote and someone had already voted in my place. Again, they can't show you any proof of these things, but because Donald Trump is telling them that there's fraud in our elections, they believe it. They're running around saying that it's true. That's not the worst thing that happened today. That is just a small thing that made me think, I got to get out of this area. Because in this area only do you have people like this setting up little booths in, near the post office. And honestly, if the lady weren't in her mid 80s and just looked like a frail old lady wearing a pink "Make America Great Again" hat, I probably would have walked up and said something to her. But I'm not going to start anything with someone of that age at all. So I just, I'm going to drive by and I'll vent to the people who listen to me on YouTube. But earlier this morning, I should say, one of my friends gave me a call. He just got into doing some business, and I don't want to get, too personal into his story, but I'm going to tell you the story because he's given me permission to talk about this. But he's gotten into business, and he had someone call him that he is doing some business with that is selling him something. And he's talking to the person, and the person says to him, they're talking about the business, and the person says to him, "Yeah, but I'm getting out of here soon. I'm moving to Idaho soon." And again, we live in California. So the first thing my friend thinks is, all right, here we go. And the guy says to him, and my friend is just trying to think of an exit strategy to get out of this conversation. But then there's a part of him that wants to hear it because he knows he's just going to tell me, at least, if nothing else. And this friend of mine, he's political because I talk to him a lot and we talk about things, but he's a little younger and he hadn't been, and he's more so now, obviously, with things that are going on. He has a wife who is here with protected legal status and everything, but that's still a concern to them as a family. But this guy says to him, "Yeah, I got to get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm just not doing this California thing. I'm moving to Idaho." And my friend is just okay, can we finish this business so I can get off the phone? And then the guy goes worse and says, "Yeah, what happened in New York? Same thing's going to happen here in California. Same thing's going to happen here. We're going to have Muslims running this country." my friend again is just like, huh. And again, he's non-confrontational, trying to get off the phone with this guy and everything. And he even told me, when he told me the story, he said, I should have said more to the guy, but I just wanted to get off the phone, and I knew I wasn't going to ever do business with this guy now. I just knew, like, I'm not going to deal with this guy. So then the guy starts saying how he was at the airport one day, and a Muslim guy was praying. And he was like, I don't know what this guy is saying. So he went up to the guy and was like, what are you doing? You need to get up. I don't know what you're saying and all that. Imagine this for a second. And see, the funny thing to me, as someone who is not a believer, someone who is not religious, is that it's funny to me that any religion thinks another religion is bonkers or anything like that. Like, they pray and they have their beliefs, and then you pray and you have your beliefs. But from a person who is like me, sitting on the outside looking in, they're all the same. Everything is based on faith. So the goal of this guy to go to this man and tell him to get up, and then went to the TSA agents and told them, hey, I don't know what this guy is saying. He might be praying for something to happen to our flight. It makes me absolutely sick to my stomach when I hear stuff like this. Like, when he's telling me this story, I'm getting like this feeling in my gut that just, it's so sad that, like, something my oldest daughter says a lot is that, like, my wife and I like to watch sometimes like murder mysteries and like cop type of shows and stuff like that. Like, we just like those shows that are like, there's like a rogue agent and stuff like that. And my daughter would say to us all the time, and it's funny because we literally were on the phone with her last night, and she's like, I tell you guys things and it takes you so long to catch up, And she would always tell us, those shows that you guys like to watch are indoctrinating you guys to be okay with some of this cop culture that we have, and to be okay with some of the stereotypes and racism that goes into what these shows do. Like, look at the typecasting that goes on in them. Look at how when you see black people, the roles that they always play. When you see Muslim people, the roles that they always play. And I mean, sad to say, not sad actually, but like, I'm proud that she's smart enough to realize this, but she's absolutely right. Because it is shows like that and the propaganda like that that causes this guy to think that that man would be doing anything but just praying to his God. Just doing what he does at the time that he does that as a Muslim, and that's it. For him to think that he's praying something like this, these things come from what Fox News is telling him, what television shows is telling him, and so forth. So he does that. He goes to TSA and says that. Then he tells my friend, I'm not going to stick around here for this. And I want to go to Idaho where I can just walk around with my gun to protect myself and no one tells me anything. My friend got off the phone with him and immediately called me to vent to me about it and was just like, dude, I just cannot believe this. And my friend grew up in a very sheltered, predominantly white conservative town. And he always tells me that had he not come to my college and ran track for me and gotten to know, different ethnicities, different people from different backgrounds and stuff like that, he might have fallen into being like that, like these type of people. He's like, this person was just so stuck in their racist ways. It was just so horrible, And that is why I just think about this area we're in, and I'm like, we got to get out of here. I didn't notice how bad it was until I started paying more attention. And I know I've said this to you guys, and listen, I know when I say these things, you guys are like, Coach D, take some time off. Just stop doing the videos, stop talking. And listen, that's not why I'm saying this. I'm not saying like it's weighing on me like that. But because this is a part of my life now, that I get on my phone, I look at information, I try to understand it, I try to deliver it to you guys and give you my perspective on it. Because of that, I feel like I'm noticing more. And some people might say, oh, you're in an echo chamber. And I used to have a problem with the term echo chamber. I used to have a problem with people saying you're in an echo chamber. But I've gone outside of my echo chamber. I've gone outside of it. I've listened to the other side. I've talked to the other side. I've researched the other side. And when I did that, I decided I like my echo chamber. I think my echo chamber is correct. I don't want to meet racists in the middle. I don't want to meet misogynists in the middle. I don't want to meet hateful, bigoted people in the middle. Another friend of mine recently posted on Facebook that she realized one of her friends was very, very racist recently. And she was like, this Trump administration has caused people to be racist. Politics are crazy, blah, blah, blah. She's like, unfollow this person. I unfollowed them because I don't want anything to do with them. And one of her friends said, it really saddens me that you are putting politics before friendships. And I just think that, if you came to my house and you needed something, I would give you whatever you asked of me, because I just think, friends are important and yada, 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 And it really pisses me off how many people don't acknowledge that racism is not politics. Sexism is not politics. Hate is not politics. Bigotry is not politics. And this lady who posted this has a transgender daughter, has a transgender son. And her son said, as a transgender person, I would not feel safe going to someone who had that political belief for help. I wouldn't feel safe with them, so I would avoid that. And he's absolutely right. And this is why it really makes me mad. It really kind of pisses me off that people say, well, that's politics. That is not politics. We're not talking about politics. I would not cut someone off because we disagreed on what the tax code should be. I would not cut someone off because we disagreed on, the government's role in healthcare. I would not, cut someone off because we had a disagreement on what the minimum wage should be. Those are politics. Politics is, should we pay the utilities of this softball park or not coming into our town? That's politics. Someone making a racist statement about Zohran Mamdani, that's not politics. That's racism. If they said, I think he's wrong on trying to make buses free because I think that's too expensive, we can have a conversation about that. We can absolutely have a conversation about that. If someone said, I don't like his ideas on defunding the police, I can have a conversation with you about that. If you post a picture of the Twin Towers and you say never forget on it, and then a picture of Zohran Mamdani and it says we forgot, I can't have a conversation with you about that. I'm not meeting you in the middle. I'm not rationalizing with you. I'm not trying to find common ground with you on that. There's no common ground to be found. We're done. So yeah, taking applications right now. You live in a city that's way more progressive, a state, a country, let me know, because we are 1 foot out right now, for reals. And I know, I just vented. Typically, I show you guys some videos, I react to videos, but I just vented to you guys for who knows how long. And I appreciate you guys listening. And seriously though, before you guys, because I know sometimes you guys will get in my comments and you feel like you gotta help me out, give me some advice and all that. I'm happy. I am very much happy. I have a beautiful wife, great daughters. I got a great job and all that. I love that. And I love doing this. I love connecting with you guys. I love reading your comments and everything. And I don't mind you saying, hey, Coach D, if you need a day, take a day or whatever like that. But I just want you guys to know that I am good. And I do this. I turn this camera on to talk to you guys because outside of my wife, I feel like you are the people who understand me and understand where I'm coming from and give me the feedback that I need to hear. So, that's just a second to tell you guys that I really do appreciate you guys. And so, but I'll enjoy reading your comments in my comment section. I look forward to reading it. So, thank you guys. Period.
Don't want no enemies or ops. Envy in their heart, I tell them stop. Vacation on the yacht.